I was told that Paddy the Baddy has stated that he doesn't want to rekindle with Ariel Helwani because Ariel tried to ruin his career. It's my first time seeing this. I just clicked on it. This is Paddy speaking. The Ariel Helwani stuff, people turned on me for telling the truth about Ariel. It's crazy, Paddy told Severe MMA. I've got all the receipts. I've got all that on me phone. This receipts thing is the maddest shout ever at the time. I actually considered Ariel a friend. Obviously, I was never a friend to him. He saw me as a good sign. The annoying thing about that was people saying to me, you've just been bullying Ariel and you've started an anti-bullying charity. My charity isn't an anti-bullying charity, for one. That's kind of funny. It's just a foundation to help people. Two, I haven't bullied Ariel at all. I said this the other day. I shouldn't have called him names. I shouldn't have. I shouldn't have said those nasty words. Everybody else was the truth. Everything else was the truth. I correct myself. He tried to assassinate my character. Oh, and it stops. It stops right there. Oh, come on. Our good friends at bjpen.com. Thank you guys for that, but they stopped. What did he do? What did Ariel do to Paddy? I'm going back. I can remember the talk of Ariel disclosing for the audience that Paddy wanted paid to do interviews. And then I remember Paddy doing a show and firing back at Ariel. I don't remember it being any worse than that. I remember, I could be speaking out of turn here, but I got to defend Ariel. If that's all that it was, and that's just not a bad thing. That doesn't destroy somebody's character. That leads me to believe I must be missing something, right? It must have been more than that. But that's all I remember. Ariel talked about Paddy wanted to be paid to do interviews. And now it turns out that Paddy, for the most part, is. I have the foggiest idea who those folks at Severe MMA were. Maybe they got gifted one. But for the most part, Paddy, it's in the form of a podcast through Barstool. But in all fairness, right? Paddy was kind of right. Paddy did say something interesting there that I can very much relate to. And he said, I thought he was my friend. And that is a mistake that a number of fighters make, particularly the young fighters. And the media will make them feel like that. They will reach out largely in text, hey, big fan. Hey, big support, seeing what you've done. They will tell them things that you would only hear from a friend. Then you start talking, then you start sharing, then you start confiding. And the great journalists will confide because they will protect it. They will bury whatever you tell them unless it's on the record and they have permission to. I mean, in all fairness, it's just one of these things that you can be susceptible to if you're new to it. And that does lead to feelings being hurt for much lesser offenses, much lesser crimes, if you will. I've had it happen. Now, I'm in it right now with an old friend named Brian, who I do not speak to anymore. But it was for the same reason. He was an MMA guy. He was within the media. I trusted him. I thought we were friends. And I will tell you, what he did to me was somewhat minor. It was. But it hurt my feelings in different ways because of the trust that I had. So I do understand what Paddy's saying. And this is in lieu of knowing the rest of the story, which I assume exists. But I listened to Ariel all the time, and I heard this back and forth with Paddy. I don't remember anything other than the statement that Paddy wanted to be paid for that. I mean, I got to tell you, I really don't have any fault in that. Paddy turned out to be a guy different than what I thought he was. I used to come over here, I do a piece on Paddy once a week, and I'd give him a hard time for stuff. I didn't agree with a number of the things that he was doing, but I was observing how well what he was doing was working. And I felt like even when I was giving him a hard time in the final analysis, I gave him a boost. That's how I felt. I felt that because that was the intent. He did a good job, but Paddy turned out not to be the guy that I thought he was. Turned out to be a much more regular guy. Turned out to be a very sweet guy with a very good heart that works very hard at a sport that he cares about and wants to be a champion in. I mean, he turned out to be a really... I didn't know that about him. I just assumed It was more of a joke. It was more of a Junie Browning. It was more a flash in the pan that could do something exciting, get a little bit of attention. You match him up right, he could even get a win or two. I had it wrong. He has potential to be a world champion. I'd like for him and Ariel to make up, but quite frankly, as Dana White says, this is a very mean business. We don't all have to get along. You tell your story, let him tell his story. You can have your truth, and he can have his truth. I mean, what's really interesting about Paddy and Ariel is they're telling the same story. They just have a little bit of a different interpretation.